Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Sandy Bottom Homestead, and I've gotten so many questions about this that I'm no longer gonna wait. I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about it. We're gonna talk about deer, specifically deer in your garden. So as you can see, we are surrounded by woods, and so everybody wants to know, how do you keep the deer out? And let me tell you, there are deer out there, but I'm gonna forewarn you, there's gonna be a piece of advice somewhere within this video that's going to be really honest, and if you can't take it and you're sensitive, bye. Now, I don't know about you, but especially this time of year, this looks like perfect deer food, doesn't it? Look at that. If I was a deer, I would just have a salad bar, go to town. Truth be told, I don't really have a lot of issues with deer, and that's because I've taken certain steps, and I'll walk you around and I'll show you all that. And I'll also talk to you about other things that I've seen work. My parents use a system that works really well. And there's a buddy I know that lives out in a field way out in the middle of nowhere, and surrounded by hundreds of acres of woods, and he doesn't get deer in his garden either. So I'll go into all of that stuff as well. And it's up to you how you want to handle it. But we need to talk about the times of year that the deer are most active in your garden. So first of all, I forgot to say, I'm coming from coastal North Carolina. That's where I'm growing. And temperature right now is roughly about 60 degrees overcast. It's actually about a thunderstorm. So I got to get this done and get out. But the first thing we need to know is, when are the deer most active? Because it's really not year round per se. There's certain times of the year where you're going to get more pressure. And so the first time of year is right now. Right now you're going to get a lot of pressure because they're having their babies, they're having their fawns. And so there's a lot of nutrient demand needed by the deer. And as they come out, this is perfect for them, right? They know. And once they learn where they can eat, it's an uphill battle to get rid of them. So that's the first time of year. Spring, they're giving birth, and there's just a lot of desire and need for it. The next time is going to be in the fall. So roughly, like for us, this is middle fall all the way into beginning of winter. There is a lot of nutrient demand because they're getting ready. Everything is falling. You know, the acorns have already fallen off the trees, pecans, nuts, whatever. And so they're going to come out and boom, here we are. So there's going to be these two times of year when it's going to be really nutrient dense, or a lot of nutrient demands needed for the animals. And the other thing is, like, we can see this with our chickens. We get our raccoon attacks. We were getting them before we took our steps to protect them in the spring and fall. Those are hands down the busiest times. So right now is the time to make a change. So in my garden, there's a couple things I've done. One is I installed this solar light. So this is a solar floodlight. It's motion detected. And so we put it up, and then we run the solar panel all the way up here where it gets more sun. You step in front of it and it lights up this whole area. So we knew the deer were tracking from back in this direction, and they were coming from this direction. So we tested it. You don't just set it up and walk away. We tested it to where if I was walking, you know, I'd kind of squat down a little bit, and I would walk through like a deer would, and it would light up about the time it gets right there by the greenhouse. So we knew that if the deer came that way, it would get rid of it. We just had a bad windstorm, so you have to forgive me on this one. But we also have these little solar lights. These are fairly cheap, and I have it hanging up here. And so when the deer come through right where I'm walking, they will trigger it, it'll light up, and it lights up this whole area. Boom, they're gone. But we don't just use lights, we use other things too, and you have to understand the way deer operate. And so what we know about deer is they're blind, basically. That's why when you go hunting, you wear bright orange. They can't really see it. So if you're blind, or you're really hard of seeing, what happens? You get, your other senses are heightened, right? So you have sound. So let's talk about sound. Now I've got two devices that I use. I'll take you to the first one. And so basically they're both motion activated. You step in front of them and they let out an audible sound. This one is a little bit fancy. So this one's a little bit higher end. It does multiple sounds. It will actually flash a little bit of light too, right here. It's solar powered. And usually you set it on the audible alarm that you can't hear, but the deer can, or it's very hard for you to hear. Now, I can't really recommend that one because, to be honest, it doesn't charge well. I think you have to go inside and plug it in every once in a while, which I should probably, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and pull it up and charge it now. But it's kind of a pain in the butt. But it was like 30 bucks, not a big deal. So this is one option. And this one came with a list that says like, hey, if you're having this pest issue, there is, use this frequency. And if it's this pest, use this frequency. I mean, it even has one that sounds like an atomic bomb alarm on it. Yeah, I set that in the middle of the night, and guess what? It was terrible when I heard it in the middle of the night, but I knew there's something out there. So when it goes off, you hear things scatter. Now here's one that's a lot cheaper, but it seems to work a lot better. You've seen this. This one is the same. It's only has one sound. It lets out a little bit of red light here, and then it's solar powered. And somebody actually got this at a yard sale, but I found the like similar models, and they're pretty cheap, and it actually works really good. So I put that there because this is the garden that we had a lot of issues with as far as like raccoons digging in it, stuff like that. And again, we get a lot of the pressure from this area. So these are the sonic, I don't know, the ultrasonic audible alarms that I use to keep them away. So that's kind of two things we do, light and sound. But then there's one other one. But before we do that, I do want to show you this. Broccoli. Broccoli check. We're coming in hot, boy. I'm telling you, feed, feed, feed. So if the deer can't see, but they can hear really good. So what we know about deer is they're gonna walk quietly, right? So if you're like hunting or something like that, like whenever we go hunting, if you crack a stick, boom, you'll see me, because that's like the first alert that there's a predator. But then the second alert is smell, okay? And I'm not talking about hanging bars of soap in your yard, all right? Screw that. That's stupid. What I'm talking about is what we do here. We plant. So let's plant something, right? Let's put some scent in our yard. So this has helped too, because we actually have deer, and I've seen them come through this area. I actually shot one in here a couple years ago. So we get deer that come through here, and they were starting to come this way as well. So once we knew that, we came out here and we planted lavender. Highly scented, very beautiful. You can smell it. Can't you smell it in the smell-o-vision? So, I mean, you've got this planted here. So the idea is it puts out a scent around, which, by the way, there's a solar panel for that light. That solar panel is for that. I just need to mount it somewhere else. So if the deer walk through it, here's the problem. Or here's how the deer think. If the deer walks through it, it's gonna brush up on them, and then it's gonna leave a scent. And then that makes them think that they're highly susceptible to other animals, knowing that they're coming. So it causes a problem. So let's think about this for a minute. Let's think about what else can we plant that's scented. And I'm gonna take you to another one that I'm doing while I talk. So one, basil, highly scented. Plant some basil. Sweet peas, they're really good, like the flower sweet peas, they're really highly scented. Gardenias are really highly scented. You know, rosemary, which is what we're gonna look at right now. Spoil, I just can't get there fast enough. Rosemary is a really good one. So like this one right here, this rosemary, even though like I can smell it from probably 10 feet away, but I guarantee you a deer can smell it from 30 to 50 feet away. So if you think about that, all through there, they can smell it. So just think outside the box a little bit, all right? Think about it and plant it and do what you can do to get these things out there, because it will keep the deer away. I very, very seldom get deer in my garden. I don't have a fence. I don't have anything else around. You can see as we get closer, nothing blocking them. We do keep a cat outside. That may help as well. Our dog, which she's getting older, so she doesn't really do as much, but she has chased deer away when we let her out at night, but not very often. It doesn't make that much of a difference. So this leads us to the part where we're going to talk about what I've seen work, okay? My parents, I'm sure you are aware that they have asked me to help them set up a garden. They have one similar to this. They use multiple raised beds, this, that, and the other. They have taken on the corners of their beds, the four corners, and they put like a 1x1 piece of wood up in each corner, probably about 5 feet high. And then they put like a plastic netting around the whole thing. Each bed has that. Now let me tell you, they feed the deer. The deer, every night, 6 of them walk right by it. They cannot get into that garden. I put something on Instagram, I showed it, and everybody's like, oh, it's bullshit, it doesn't work, whatever. I mean, I've sat there and I've seen an 8-point deer walk by and just can't even get close to the garden. Now, we'll say this, last year they had sweet potatoes and they were trying to run out, and I was like, look, it's at the end of the season. Go ahead and pull that fence up right there. You could just roll it up and let them kind of grow out. The first night the deer came and cleared it out. Clearly it worked. So that is an option, okay? It's not the ideal option because it's extremely difficult to get into their garden to work. But look, it's like I've said before, it's their garden. I don't care how they grow it. I don't care what they do in it. It's whatever makes them comfortable, and that's what they like. So the other thing is building an actual fence surrounding your whole garden, okay? But you need a 2-layer fence. So what does that look like? We got to put our imagining caps on because clearly I don't have one. But let's say here you had a fence and it would come up 5 feet high, and then you would go about 4 feet in, you'd put up another fence about the same height. And so like if you wanted to go into your garden, you could build a gate, walk in there. But the idea is the deer cannot jump over both fences to get in. So they'll go up to it, they'll look, and then they can't get over each fence. They can only get over one at a time, but the other one's so close that they can't go like that, right? That's how the guy I know that lives way out in the country does it. It's up to you. It's totally up to you how you do it. But here's the part where I give you a piece of advice, and it's probably unsolicited advice, and it's gonna be okay. The older I get, the more I realize that the cheapest option is not the best option. Let me elaborate for just a second. All right, if you think that going to get some flimsy ass piece of fencing is gonna work because it was cheap, you're sadly mistaken. You need to buck up and spend the money to build something that's going to last a long time. I know, it's easier said than done. It's expensive. I get it. I'm totally sympathetic to that idea. But if this is something you want to do, in the long run, it's cheaper to do it right the first time than to do it again, waste the materials, waste the money, come back, fix it, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. You're going to save money in the long run. I know it's difficult, but it's bullshit to do something really cheap and just not get it done right. And now that I've thoroughly pissed off 50% of the viewers, I will say, I have done this many, many, many times. For example, my drip system. I got the cheapest thing possible and I hated it. And it was the worst. And then I finally bucked up and I got a better drip system and installed it. And I love it. I've had no issues with it. It works great. It's done everything that I needed to do, but I spent that money. When I went back and did the calculations, if I had kept it going within 3 years, this drip system that I paid 4 times as much for will make me more money than the other one. So it's right there. You know, the proof is in the pudding for me. Now, it took me a while to realize that, and the older I get, the more I realize it. The quality stuff lasts better. It's not always the case, but generally speaking, it's the case. Look, that cheap audible alarm works better than the more expensive one. So, am I wrong? Some things yes, some things no. But just remember, if you're trying to keep deer out, they are persistent. They are going to keep coming and coming and coming until they cannot get in there anymore. So just think about that. Think about that as you work through this and you try to keep the deer out of your property. It's an uphill battle. And another plant that I thought of that's really good is mint. Mint is really good because it's low growing and they can't see it as well. So they'll get up to it and they'll back up and like, ooh, hold up. So let's just keep this in mind. Now for everybody that has questions about all the other animals, rabbits, rats, stuff like that, the key thing is keep the produce up, harvest it, get it out, move on. If you want to keep rabbits out, just think, how big is a rabbit? How big can it get in? How big of a hole can it slide through? And make adjustments. So if you want to do if you do the fence going all the way around your garden, the 2-layer fence, like I was saying, put some chicken wire on the back side of the fence. So I would use like a thick gauge fencing. And then for the last foot, I would put in just like some chicken wire behind it or something that's really tight holes to put in. And I'll show you what I used for my chicken coop. Because again, we went cheap on our chicken coop and we spent 5 years fighting raccoon attacks, raising chickens, not getting chickens every year. And now we don't have that issue. So what I use on my chicken coop, hard wire here, and you can see it is sturdy. I mean, it's really hard for me to bend that. So this will last, this can last more than I'm gonna live in reality, especially because we're keeping it dry. Now, if you look, we don't want stuff getting in. So you see, we have the smaller holes on the bottom so nothing can get in underneath. You can use a combination of methods, but that's gonna take care of your animals in your garden. It's going to protect it, and it's going to keep you harvesting more and not feeding the wildlife, because once they learn where you are, they will keep coming back.